Now we're going to get into a little bit of audio editing. What we have here is a partially cut news story about the coverage of Hurricane Irene. We have some talking heads in the form of politicians speaking to the media and some B-roll shots of the storm itself and of citizens preparing for the hurricane. What we're going to do is balance between the speakers themselves and make sure that their audio matches as we switch from one to the other, and then we'll balance that against the B-roll sound that's going to be going on at the same time they're speaking, and also in between here to mix it to appropriate levels. Then we'll go ahead and lay in a music track, and we'll bring the music up and down according to the appropriate speakers. Then we'll bring in a music track and raise and lower the levels there as is appropriate to match the talking heads. So let's get started first by moving our timeline a little bit. We're going to be all concerned with audio here, so we're going to kind of push the video up a little bit here. Give ourselves a little bit more room to work with. Let's go ahead and stretch down this track here. That is the talking heads voices, and then we'll do the same thing here with the B-roll sound. And first thing that we want to do is go ahead and balance these. Let's go ahead and we're going to use what's called the solo button. We have two buttons here. When we press solo, it mutes all the other tracks, no matter how many there are, and makes it just this track here. If we had pressed this, we would be muting this track. And if you have multiple tracks, it's very convenient to be able to use solo because you don't have to go through muting all the other tracks. You just hit the solo button and all the other tracks are muted and just this one's left. So let's take a listen to this, and where we want dialogue on a piece like this is somewhere between -12 and -6 on average. It may go some below, it may go a tiny bit above, but on average we want it up around in that level. So let's take a listen to this first talking head.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the system, and it's possible we could see an additional 10 to 15 inches of rain.
Okay, so he's actually a little bit hot here. It's kind of pushing up over 6 quite a bit. So what we're going to do is, with this track pulled down like this, we have access to a volume control that's right inside the timeline. So if we click here and on that and start pulling it down, we can see we get feedback that we've lowered it about 2.27 decibels. So let's see how that balances it out a little bit.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the system.
Still a little tiny bit hot, so let's bring this down just again, just a little bit. We're down around 3.4.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the...
And that feels pretty good. Let's go to the next one.
The big thing that we'll be focused on here, obviously, as the tornadoes, but the big thing will be the flooding.
And we seem pretty good there. Let's look at the next one.
Big threat for most people in South Florida is the rain, but not on the West Coast.
He's maybe a little tiny bit soft, so let's bring him up about... Now I'm holding down the control key to get more tighter control over raising this line. Let's bring him up about 1.5 dB.
Big threat for most people in South Florida is the rain, but not on the West.
And that seems to be pretty good. So we've done a pretty good job here of doing this. Now let's work on the balance. Let's go ahead and solo this track here. Now the first clip is not over any kind of voiceover, so we're going to leave it at full volume. Let's take a look and make sure that it's just not too soft or not too hot. Again, we want to be up around maybe -12, -18, something like that. Okay, that's pretty good without touching it all. Let's go to the first B-roll clip. Now, these B-rolls we want to be down lower, between -18 and somewhere maybe even around -24, because so they don't drown out the talking heads when the politicians are speaking on camera. Okay. That one's pretty good. That one's a little tiny bit hot. So what we're going to do with these though is we're going to open up. It's hard to get onto the little audio control line, the volume control level, every single time to do it inside the timeline. So what we're going to do is go to our audio clip mixer here, and we'll see the one that's soloed is the one that we're going to vary here as we come here and play back this clip. Let's go ahead and select it. It was a little tiny bit loud, so let's bring it down about -3 dB, almost, well, -3 is probably closer. Let's take it down just a skosh more, about 4. That's pretty good. The next one's pretty close on -24. And this one again is a little bit hot, so let's click on it and bring it down about -4 like we did the other one. And that seems to be pretty good. Let's go to the next ones. Now, these are not under talking heads, so let's leave them pretty up. This one's actually a little low, so let's go here and bring it up. 4.0. Maybe even a little tiny bit more there. Let's go up to full 6. Pretty good. And then finally this last one. And it's nice and loud there. So we've got a good mix going on. Now let's take off the solo and let's check the levels between the talking heads. Let's watch the whole thing through and see what we get here.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the system, and it's possible we could see an additional 10 to 15 inches of rainfall.
I think the big thing that we'll be focused on here, obviously, as the tornadoes, but the big thing will be the flooding.
Big threat for most people in South Florida is the rain, but not on the West Coast. They'll certainly get the rain, but the big threat there is the storm surge.
Okay, so we did pretty good here. If anything, this one is still a little tiny bit loud. So let's go ahead and adjust this one down a little bit more, maybe 0.6.
Between 6 to 8 inches of rain.
Oops, let's put it on solo so we can just listen to it. And they're right at -24, so that looks good. Now, one thing that will probably be a good idea here is to add some transitions through these sounds, so it's not having these abrupt cuts. And if you remember back in the transitions tutorial, one way that we can do that is to select a range of clips here. We'll just go ahead and lasso all of the clips here, and we're going to go up to the sequence, and we're going to apply an audio transition. And it's just a default audio transition to the whole range. And as you can see, it's been added throughout the sequence. So let's see how that smooths it out a little bit.
South Florida has received between 6 to 8 inches of rain already from the system, and it's possible we could see an additional 10 to 15 inches of rainfall.
I think the big thing that we'll be focused on here, obviously, as the tornadoes, but the big thing will be the flooding.
Big threat for most people.
So as you can see there, we have a lot smoother transitions between the shots there with the audio transitions laid in there.